Chapter 2. A Crown for the Deserved. 22 years ago. With a gasp, Lambelhen yanked back on the reins. His horse, Darebeth, shrieked and reared, nearly throwing him off its back. He dismounted, planting his expensive boots into the clammy mud. Throwing his cloak open, he reached for Hathrogil, the sword, and his hand found instead a cold shaft wrapped in a dingy rag. Lambelhen ran his eyes over a fireplace poker, the one Dagahan had used to stoke the fire. He gawked. How did that prick manage? Lamb! A red hood, flashing through the tall bramble, bobbed toward him. Where have you been? The master is calling. We have to get to Caradax before the priest dies. Lambelhen gripped the poker tight and shoved it back into Hathrogil's sheath. Lambelhen's fists and jaws squeezed tighter every time he had to lower himself to the floor for that stale-cocked old Kingsorcerer, and now his bones might have reached their breaking point. The same old rocky smell of the Ilbith Tower's stones wafted up his nose once again, cold and hard as always. My lord, please understand, he said to the old piss's pointed boots. Hathrogil, the sword. You've no idea what we've lost. One of those boots stepped on his hand and applied gradual pressure. You've no idea, pretty thing, the hard voice above him responded. Being the only elf in the entire faction had earned him that nickname, especially with Dagahan gone. Lambelhen had worked hard with Dag for many years to get to this position in the Ilbith faction. But huddling on the floor and worrying about keeping other people happy, or fearing punishment, wasn't exactly the way he wanted to live his life. The spells he'd accumulated nearly fixed all his ailments, or at least kept them in check. He still had to work off his carnal lust every day, often multiple times to stay level. And this place's free sex policy with the servants allowed him his release whenever necessary. He couldn't leave like Dagahan had. He needed Ilbith. He needed to own Ilbith. My lord, I could raise this tower higher, I could make it soar, if only I could be allowed to go back for my sword. Didn't you hear me? I said no. The boot crunched down on his hand, his teeth ground together and squeaked in his skull. Lambelhen held his growling voice in. We're awfully busy, and I need you here, pretty boy. My lord. Lambelhen paused to clear his throat. My lord, the sword has powers I can't hope to unlock alone. If we can go back and The boot ground down on his fingers, and a large, meaty fist grabbed his hair and jerked his face to meet a thick-bearded one with the cold, empty eyes any Kingsorcerer would have. Some lusty elf here doesn't respect the Kingsorcerer's orders. I think he'll be alone in confinement, romancing himself tonight. No. He might have followed up with pleas, but Lambelhen had stopped begging long ago. Yes. The Kingsorcerer ground the heel of his boot atop Lambelhen's hand. Keep defying me, and your hands will be too broken to rub anything. Lambelhen's forehead went cold, as it did when his anger peaked. His thoughts washed away, and a strange and dour consciousness he couldn't fathom replaced it. The pain in his hand also fled. Oh, look, fellas, he's giving me the snake eyes now. We're all scared when you do that, pretty boy. He released Lambelhen's hair and his hand. The whole. Strong hands lifted both of Lambelhen's arms and carried him, feet dragging across the throne room toward the lower wing. Lost in a state of non-thought, his eyes lingered on the Kingsorcerer until a wall passed between them. Distant coughs echoed throughout the system of caves found under the Ilbith Tower they referred to as the Hole. Iron doors were affixed to each little nook in the cave tunnels. The guilty waited out their time here, or waited to be beaten or gutted, whichever they had earned. Most people down here were servants who couldn't behave themselves. A few were prisoners from enemy factions, now resting between questioning sessions, while even fewer were Ilbith members. Lambelhen had only visited this place from the other side of the door. Until now, he had played the perfect faction member and worked his way up the ranks using his practiced act. Losing his sword threw things off, and now he'd have to recover somehow. He'd have to recover the sword somehow. His thoughts had returned to normal, and his hand throbbed. None of his fingers were broken, he found after testing each of them. His sore hand became the least of his concerns when his misty sweat and anxious jitters returned to greet him for a nice, long, miserable night, like the days of his youth. He rested the hand on his chest and leaned against the stone wall, beginning a chant he'd learned from sorcery practice to numb his body. Despite what the Kingsorcerer had said, he couldn't simply masturbate the episode away. Only real sex provided the relief he needed. Somehow, through keen skill and persistent meditation practice, he fell asleep and found himself. "I know who you are now." Lambelhen jerked awake when a hand squeezed his shoulder. He lurched away. He hadn't noticed the hole in the wall the hand now stuck through before falling asleep. "Calm down, my friend," a voice whispered. Lambelhen replied, "Whoever you are, I'm going to stick my thumbs into your eyes until I find your brain when I get out of here." The hand retracted, and the man talked through the opening, releasing the stench of his alcohol-laden breath into Lambelhen's cell. "It's me, Talakas. You're the elf, aren't you?" "You stupid. Do you have any idea what you've interrupted?" Lambelhen wiped his forehead on his sleeve. Aside from the residual moisture, his sweating had stopped and his energy had replenished. The sexual urgency had dissolved already, even though it should have remained and taken him to levels of illness long into the morning after they let him out of here. One of those dreams had graced him again. One of those too realistic dreams he had enjoyed several times in the past year. Good dream, huh? Sorry about that. Beyond good. It was a healing kind of dream, and it always featured that same woman. "Why did you wake me up?" "Why else? I want to talk." "I'm not interested." He rolled over and curled on the floor, ready to get a restful night now, thanks to the dream. "I want to kill the Kingsorcerer," Telekas said, and Lambelhen raised his head. "That lumbering jackass has been asking for it for a long time. Lambelhen is your name, isn't it?" Lambelhen sat up again and pointed an ear at the hole. "I've had my eye on you. You're special, Lambelhen. Like a leader before he becomes a leader, you know? I can sense these things. I know a lot, but I don't know it all. I need someone as savvy as me. With our combined efforts, I think we could do it. I don't share power. I didn't say anything about sharing. This is about you, my friend. I've got a disturbing notion that the jackass up there is going to run us into the ground. I mean, look at the place. It needs someone quick and intelligent to whip everyone into shape. We're the ruling faction, for crying out loud. You'd think we wouldn't have such money and resource trouble. Who are you? I told you, I'm Telekas. No, what do you do, idiot? I keep the books. I do lots of calculating. And we're not doing so well, Lamb. I'm concerned. And my insolence got me thrown in here. What are you in for? I don't like hearing the word no. I can't live in this place much longer. You're on the same leaf as me, then. You and me is all it'll take. Lambelhen rolled his eyes. We'll need to win some allies. Allies. How long have you been in this faction, man? We don't need allies. We need our two cunning minds, the Ingnet's tome, and some spell practice. If you want to be the next Kingsorcerer, and I sure as hell would like you to be, you have to beat his protection spells and carry out a specific ritual. That's all. It's not even a magic ritual. It's symbolic. If done to a T, no one will be able to deny you. How do you know this? I keep books. Lots and lots of books. This ritual is how it's done. We're not a ragtag group of practitioners who decided to form a faction. We're a unit written into the fabric of the netherworld and known by all of its dignitaries. It's not us who decides who is Kingsorcerer. It's them. Are you with me, Lambelhen? He looked at his hands, soiled and still throbbing from the Kingsorcerer's abuse. Better yet, Lambelhen began. Call me Lammerhath. Today. Send me, Chandran said, kneeling on the floor in the center of a blossom of star-patterned slates, an immaculate new addition to the room. Kingsorcerer Lammerhath crossed his arms under his heavy robe, which was draped in gold chains with diamonds and rubies. Are you sure? His crown of many gold chains and gems glistened with fiery light. Two huge fangs from a long-extinct breed of scowl affixed to the crown stood tall like horns on his head. Chandran said, I want to prove myself to you. I'll do whatever you require. You've never met Dagahan, Lammerhath warned. He's a greased viper, and knows he's being followed. I'll go with your guidance, my lord. Talakas, the second, stood next to the Kingsorcerer with his lists and his sharpened piece of charcoal. The office of the third highest sorcerer stood empty after its previous occupant had gotten himself killed by blowing himself to pieces with a miscast spell while trying to destroy Dorhen. How could such an idiot get that office in the first place? Now it waited for Chandran to take it, so long as he could please the Kingsorcerer. He'd worked many years to climb the ladder this far. "Well," Lamerhath said, stepping forward, "you know the initiation protocol. You want to be the third?" He snapped his fingers, and a high-level red robe stepped forward with a small wooden box. "No one advances to an office without eating the heart of the fool stupid enough to lose the office. We all had to do it, myself included." Chandran bowed his forehead to the stones. "I know the rules, my lord. Give me the heart." The red robe placed the box on the floor before him. He opened it, and the thick stink of rotten flesh wafted out and taunted his nose. It must have been easy to retrieve the man's heart after such an explosion. It had been days since the accident, and now the heart's bright red had faded to gray. He lifted the slimy thing out. The bottom had gone soft, and now wore a dusting of mold. Hints of blue were sprouting here and there under the meat's surface. Lamerhath raised his arms horizontally to the sides. "Like the children of our beloved Thaxel, we eat the hearts of our enemies. Begin, Chandran." Chandran bit into the sour meat, which fell apart easily and stuck to his teeth. A chalky texture grated against his tongue, and the skunky mush slid down his throat after an eternity of reluctant chewing. Swallowing back a heave, he bit off another wad. Forcing swallow after thick swallow, he finished the thing, leaving his stomach churning and gurgling afterward. Hugging his stomach, Chandran grunted out a few gags, tensed his jaw, closed his throat, and swallowed until the gagging reflex stopped. Lamerhath's arms stayed crossed, his mouth held straight. He didn't smile for anything. "You'll do, Chandran. Go prepare your supplies." He rose, bowed to a 90-degree angle, and strode out, keeping his back straight. "Reyna!" he yelled to his thrall as she waited in the proper kneeling position. She jumped up and scurried behind him.
"Here, master,"
Reyna said, back in his humble chamber. She approached him with a waste bucket.
"You can puke into this. I'll get rid of the evidence in secret."
He pushed the bucket away. "This is serious, bitch. I'm in the third office now. I might become Kingsorcerer if the two above me die. I don't fake my devotion to Thaxel." He grabbed his heavy leather travel pack off the wall and threw it on the bed. "After this mission, my new rank will move us to a loftier chamber in the Chimera Tower." She fell to her knees and kissed his boot.
"I'm so lucky to have a master as capable as you."
"Get up." He rushed to the desk and scribbled a list onto a scrap of paper. "Go to the greenhouse and get these herbs."
"Yes, master."
Pocketing the list, she ran out with her dark, wavy hair bouncing behind her. Chandran opened his trunk to pack all the necessary weapons. He knew the small assassination tools best because he used to make a good living as a mercenary before sorcery entered his life. "Excuse me, Chandran," a man's voice called. Rufus poked his head into the room. "Sorry to bother, but I just won a big shiny gold coin playing cards. Can I borrow Reyna again?" Chandran unsheathed his lightest sword and doused a rag with polishing oil. "Find someone else to get you off. Reyna's going with me." "You're taking her?" "Yes. How many times would you like to hear it?" "To the Lightlands?" Chandran sprang and swung the sword at him. Rufus reared back. "What's your problem? Reyna is too talented to bother with you anymore. I've trained her well. She's not a whore for hire. She's going with me." Chandran sat on the stool and continued his polishing. "Maybe if you got off your fat ass and went out there, you could catch your own attractive thrall." The servants living in the towers of Ilbeth were free for the sorcerers to use and share, but they were also allowed to keep thralls taken from the little Darklandic villages scattered about the grasslands. Reyna had happened to be in the right place 5 years ago when Chandran went out on another mission. He never had been one to bother caring for others, but Reyna's bronze skin and long legs changed his mind a bit. She had protested plenty, but learned to like him after a good training regimen. "Go away, Rufus." The man did so with a sniff. Chandran opened a small chest nestled within the large one. 5 holding spheres, glass balls preloaded with spells for quick use, rested upon the black velvet lining the box's interior. stuffed full with goose feathers. He moved them to his belt holster and included a few empty ones. Reyna returned 30 minutes later with several drawstring bags bundled in each hand. "Pack for a long trip," he told her, taking the bags. She bowed without a word before kneeling beside the pile of hay she slept on and rolling up the threadbare blankets. With their bedding packed, she slipped a brown leather corset on over her dowdy dress. He laced up the back for her, snapping the strings tight in his haste to set out. No matter who it was, Chandran's thrall would always wear this. He had ordered it specially made with close to 100 pockets and sheaths hidden in the seams, so she always carried a whole arsenal for every job. Sweeping Reyna's hair aside, he placed the longest blade into her back sheath. Its handle was made small enough to hide under her hair. She loaded other lethal implements into her front pockets. Anything from throwing darts to powdered poisons. "Don't disappoint me," he said, lifting his own pack.
I'll die first, Master.
He exited the room with her on his heels. Downstairs, a handful of sorcerers would be casting expensive spells for the two of them. It took a lot of energy and resources to create a portal to the Lightlands. Energy and resources spent for him. Chandran's moment to shine approached.